do you think then that if we are not, because one thing I notice very often is that we're frightened. It's like we're frightened of coming out, or like of just being ourselves and
Yeah.
being true to who we are. And I'm going to wear this with pride. If I want to wear this, or I'm going to say this, but it's all coming from my truth and my heart, and the intention's good, but it doesn't matter. But we're terrified of going there so often. And is that because then we have these patterns that are actually tainting the lens, that are shaping our terror of going there?
Exactly. That is an expression of a trauma pattern
Yeah.
to have, because my question would be fear of what? Fear of looking silly, fear of losing control, fear of not being accepted, fear of being abandoned and rejected. That those are very early patterns that develop in us. So to really honor the fear, everything gets included. So it's not like skip over the fear so that you can live this awakened human life. No, it doesn't work that way. So to honor the fear, to recognize it, to feel it, to know how it lives in the body, and to know there's something outside of that. To like, don't stop there with the fear.
And then is that why, and I'm just constantly thinking, because of all the times I've heard these questions and people and things, then is that why surrender is become such a, I guess, an important word that's always used, and action, to surrender into that moment, to just be in that feeling. Don't rush it, don't push it, don't fight it, and fully surrender into that fear then, if that's arising in that moment.
Yes. Well, surrender into the fear. That, and what do you, I'm not sure what you mean by that exactly. Like, do
Well,
you
if
mean,
so, from my own experience, like, I'll give you an example. When I sold my company and I wanted to start speaking and coming out with this work more, and after my own experiences, every waking minute that I would be working with my thoughts, working with my feeling, and there would be this knot in my gut and this fear of unworthiness, of should I be doing this? How am I going to pay the bills? Like, there's so many things when I built a company that I'd spent 8 years in. But my only option was to be with it and feel it and let go and actually allow it to be there
mhm,
in those moments. So that's what I mean by surrendering into
yeah,
that fear in that moment of the
yeah,
feeling.
definitely letting it be there, welcome it, get curious about it. Like, oh, how is it in the body? And, fear lives in layers in the body. It's almost an endless exploration how fear lives in the body. So, like, keep going in and feeling the sensations of it. And the ultimate understanding around fear, or really any emotion, is it's just sensation. If we let the story go and we just, and that's a big thing to just say, I don't mean to be, blithe about that, but just let the story be and feel the sensations and let those just be here, as you were saying so beautifully. And then you realize, oh, well, what is fear then? It's just sensation, and it might be strong sensation, and that's okay. But is that the thing that has to rule my life? And it gets into a fierce choice sometimes, like, because when you start to know there is something else, there is this aliveness here, there is something coming through. You were describing that I want to share this, and that's like a natural movement that feels exciting and alive, and then there's fear that squashes it. And when we live according to the fear, we're going to live a life that doesn't feel true because we're keeping ourselves limited and small, and we're believing a story that isn't true. So feeling the fear, honoring it, and tapping into what else is here that's motivating besides the fear. And I also invite people to do experiments and, take baby steps and try out things. And, you don't have to just dive into, having no control over everything, over anything, because that freaks people out sometimes. But just like little by little, just like let yourself not have your hands on the driver's wheel so strongly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
begin to listen. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the deep listening then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did, I don't know if that saying, is there an ever an end to this, but do do you think we get to a point where we've kind of worked with most of those frozen traumas, those parts of us in time where we are just living in a peaceful place? And obviously, life can happen and there can be traumatic events that can still throw us off balance. But is that possible? Or do you think it's just never ending? Because you even mentioned pre birth trauma,
Mhm.
past lineage. I mean, if you start leaning into that, it's like, whoa, the list would be, seems endless when you look.
It does. And in that sense, we can endlessly explore, but we can also um, uh, understand enough about our trauma patterns that we don't have to keep diving into that exploration. And only when it's apparent, like if you get triggered, then there's something that needs to be done there. But I do think it's very possible to live with a great sense of well-being, peace, surrendered to life, letting yourself be moved by life. There's a lot of space that's possible when that trauma work kind of comes to fruition. I want to say, just, it doesn't finish. Like my experience is, it still comes sometimes and
Mm,
it's fine. And I don't have any resistance to it at all. But, most of life is quite light and quiet. There's a silence. There's a sense of well-being and expansion. Yeah, I
beautiful,
do
which
think it's
is
possible.
which is
Yeah,
really nice to know for people listening to this, especially if they're in the middle of it right now.
yeah,
Which leads me to a question, I guess, that I ask quite often on the show, just to get to know a little bit more about you and put context. But has there been a low point in your life that you'll reflect upon that's later become a blessing, but it was very challenging at the time to see
hmm,
that?
yeah. I would say all of it. I'm just in taking in your question, the first thing that pops up for me is a divorce that I went through that was incredibly painful. And what I learned from that is just not that I'm grateful that it happened, I'm not, but I learned so much. I'm grateful for what I learned for sure. Because I used it, I said, okay, there are things I don't know that I need to know. There are things that I need to figure out here about my role and what happened. And I really took that on as a big part of my path. And it was, a good experience for me in the end. So I'm grateful for all the learning around that.
Yeah, yeah. I found um, when I was transitioning that I really had to put the tools into practice consistently daily that made
Yeah,
me kind of walk the talk that I was passionate about, but
yeah,
hadn't. It felt like an initiation into the next chapter of me, if that makes
yeah.
sense.